You see the uniforms, we see the humans behind the uniforms. This is Crime Watch. Hello and welcome to Crime Watch. I'm Jane Cameron with Sergeant Chris Nunez of the Buena Park Police Department. You know, it's tough being an officer. It's tougher being a sergeant because the sergeants are the ones that have to make sure the officers are always doing the right things, right? Sergeant?
Well, hopefully everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, but supervisors have actually quite a wide variety of responsibility. And one of the most important is interacting with subordinates, and sometimes that can be, both interesting and fun and challenging.
It's not like an officer becomes a sergeant. They have to desire to be a sergeant. And next to me is a familiar face that you've seen before on Crime Watch, usually making faces, or sometimes even behind the camera making faces at us. Mike Gallows is now a sergeant for how long?
Under 2 weeks now.
Wow, okay, so what is it like being on this side now where you're one of the ones that you used to make fun of, now you're the point of all of it?
We've never made fun of our supervisors. We love them all very much. They help us do our job. I'm very happy to be on this end of it. There's a lot to learn, but I hope I can take advantage of this position to help supervise and mentor our officers so that we can do a high-quality job out there in the street.
He's on probation. Now, being a police officer is something you already know. How is it different when you're a sergeant?
As a sergeant, I'm involved, but I'm not necessarily involved as much as I would have been as a police officer. You know, if there's a call or some kind of activity going on in the past as a patrol corporal, I would be hands-on in dealing with people, getting down information, taking supplemental reports. As a supervisor, my job more is to make sure that the job is being done right and that the officers are taking care of everything that needs to be taken care of. Now, I can still do that if I need to. I'm be more than happy to do that, but it's not necessarily my role. It's more of an overseeing and supervision of the personnel that I'm working with.
An example of that is I know when we're out on the streets for Crime Watch, our sergeant doesn't have to take paper. He always gets another officer to come in and take it.
Well, he is the most senior sergeant we have, so it's a little bit different. I wouldn't be a person taking reports, but if we had a major scene or I had to kind of interact with someone or do something that would require a report, then I might need to. But it's not typically the kind of reports I'll be taking. Now, there is additional paperwork I have as a supervisor now. It's just not on the police report end. It's more of the supervision administrative end.
Now, only being in this position for 2 weeks, I know he hasn't seen anything, but what are some of the challenges of being a sergeant, you being the most senior sergeant?
I think both the most challenging things are also the most rewarding things, and I find interacting with the people that we work with, you get to You're one of the roles as a sergeant is really it's your job to enable your subordinates, your line staff, to actually perform their work. So eliminating problems or challenges that they might have, providing training and resources for them to be able to do their job, making sure that their work environment is both fun and fulfilling for them as employees. So in those respects, it's really no different than any other industry. We just happen to be cops. We're in uniforms and enforcing the laws.
I noticed, just having done this show for quite a while, and we're always assigned to a sergeant, you have a more universal view of what's going on, where officers can be deep into a situation, it seems like the sergeants are always looking at the entire scene and paying attention to much more than just what's right in front of them.
Well, that's exactly right, and one of the reasons why Mike, made that transition from line personnel to supervision is he's always been one of those officers that was able to see the bigger picture, to use a cliche. So, a sergeant's job is to supervise. If you're involved in the work up to your elbows, then you're too close. You're not in a position to be able to see everything that you need to see and provide that direction and guidance and supervisory oversight if you're still doing the work. So, I find typically that's one of the most difficult transitions for newer sergeants, especially for those who were, we use the term hard charging, real assertive workers, and that certainly was Mike's style when he was answering radio calls. But one of the advantages that Mike has is he was a corporal for a while before he promoted to sergeant. So at the corporal level, you're not a full-time supervisor, but you have greater responsibility. And he was a senior officer. He was a veteran officer. So that, along with his corporal, added corporal responsibilities, and he performed very well through the testing process. So it's really no surprise that he has made this transition and promotion to the next level.
Being a police officer is tough, no doubt, because you're having to make decisions in a split second that people can watch and make judgment of and look at over and over and over again, having so much more time. Why did you want to transition from being a police officer to being a sergeant?
Well, after I started here as a police explorer back in 1994 and went to police service aide, which is a civilian employee, then became a police officer here in 1999. And with the experience I've gained in working as a police officer and all the different assignments I've worked, the experience I've gained, I just feel it's like a natural progression to use the tools I've acquired and the training I've acquired to help the other officers out here in the field to give them advice and information that I've obtained in my career to make their job easier and make them more efficient.
I hear we have a brand new officer out in the field tonight too. Do you remember back when you first started in that kind of a position?
Yeah, I definitely remember that. I had a very, very tough training officer who was actually my partner up until 2 weeks ago out in the field here. And I know how excited he is, but how intimidated he probably is by everything that he's probably being faced with right now, because what you get trained with in the academy versus when you're out here in real life, and it could be your life or someone else's life out in the line, it's a little bit more realistic when you think about it, and you have to do, like you said, make those quick decisions. And to learn to do that as a brand new officer out here, even though you have a training officer out there with you, it can be intimidating, but it's one of those things where that's why we have each other out here to learn from and to mentor each other, and I'm sure he'll do fine.
What's nice is Sergeant Gallos obviously has a deep affection for the job, and I can only imagine that you do a much better job when you've got that appreciation of what you're able to do out in the field.
Definitely, a lot of people have described police work as a calling, if you will. If you're not passionate about your work, or if you're definitely not getting personal fulfillment from your work, no matter what you do, then there's something wrong. You're not going to enjoy going to work. It's going to make work like work. So you hit the nail on the head with regarding Mike. He mentioned starting as an explorer. I remember when Mike was an explorer. I was already, I think I was a detective in 1994. So I've been able to watch his career, grow, and his professional maturation over the over the past 13, 14 years. How long has it been? 14 years?
20 years since '94.
Yeah.
But you look like you're still 21. It's all good.
Thank you.
So I mean, when you put it in those terms, put it in perspective like that, that natural progression is really what we're hoping for. Some people leave the business, and others find a niche, and they want to stay there. So progressing into supervision, I can tell you, at least for me personally, I think that as you promote and you take on more diverse and greater responsibility, it also enables you more ability to have an impact on the organization and with your coworkers, people you work with. So in those terms, it can be more professionally fulfilling. And with greater responsibility, sometimes there are greater headaches for sure, but that kind of comes with the territory. And really, I'm not just talking about police work. Any industry is like that.
So it sounds like Mike is real happy to be a sergeant.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite an accomplishment, to be honest with you. And personally, I think for a police officer, promoting to sergeant is probably the most difficult promotion to make. And that's not to say that promoting further is a breeze. That's not what I mean. But definitely at the sergeant level. And it's been my experience also that this holds true for even other law enforcement agencies.
Well, what was the testing you had to do?
Well, the process can change from time to time, but typically there's a written exam, which we had in this case. There's also an interview panel, and here we interview with outside panelists. So since we're looking for a sergeant, we go out and ask lieutenants from allied agencies to come and sit on the panel. So you're interviewing with people that you don't know. There is a promotability assessment that is done on each candidate by everyone in our leadership group. That means sergeant and above. So what that means is I had to actually sit down and perform a written response for each candidate about my impression of their leadership ability, and that's done by everyone at the sergeant level and above for each candidate, and all these facets are scored or weighted aspects of the promotional process. There is an interview with the chief of police. Once all the scores are aggregated from the different facets of the testing process, the chief will then call in those top candidates, usually the top three, and they have a lengthy interview one-on-one. Sometimes the chief brings in the captains to participate in that as well. So there is no other rank that goes through such a exhaustive testing process. And I find that, particularly at the management levels, sometimes they're much more subjective and, in my opinion, an easier process to perform, because you sit down with a meeting with the chief, and you talk largely about philosophical things and those sorts of things. So when you're testing for that level, your pedigree is already known, your experience is already known, your formal education, all those things are already written down on a paper, and you're talking more from a philosophical perspective. So the sergeant promotion is very nuts and bolts.
It sounds like he has to prove himself.
Definitely. Well, that proving comes every day in the field, and Sergeant Gallows has certainly done that. So the actual process itself, though, there are several components to it. Each is weighted and scored, and sometimes the top candidates, there could be hundreds of points separating, the top candidates. So it's highly competitive, and it's not uncommon for people to go through this process even 2 or 3 times before they actually get promoted.
Mike seems like he's well liked.
Yeah, well, as he mentioned, he started here as a kid, so if you've been around for any time, you've kind of seen him grow up here. We have a number of employees like that. But you're right, he is well liked because he's got a good balance of experience, sound, knowledge and police work. He's developed that over time. He's got good, diverse experience. He's been a detective, worked a brief term in traffic, patrol. He's on our SWAT team. And we find that those people that are interested and willing to, kind of try new and different things, like I was mentioning earlier when we were talking to Officer Maddox, that diversity in experience really helps make the best officers. I think it's difficult to become the top expert in any subject matter, and it's even more difficult to try to master several. But to be a solid performer in diverse topics, really, those kind of individuals make the best supervisors. Even if you're not an expert, you have some idea, some clue about how things work in a particular subject matter. At least that's a starting point. So
we've got a good sergeant on his way.
Absolutely, Mike will do great. From the technical aspect, he's already there. Learning to be a good mentor, a good coach, being able to motivate and influence his subordinates. Those things sometimes are skills that you have to develop as a new leader. So, I think he'll do great there as well.
We mentioned that there is a new officer that is also starting on the department. Today, in fact, we have him here, Officer Jeremy Maddox. How difficult is it to be a new officer in today's world?
I don't remember.
Because you're too old, right?
I think Sergeant Gallos alluded to that earlier. The process to actually get to where Jeremy is today, to earn an appointment is very challenging. A lot of competition, and at least as it stands right now, a lot of police departments are having a difficult time filling vacancies just because of we kind of look for qualified candidates out of the same candidate pool. So if we have vacancies here in Buena Park, I can assure you Santa Ana, Anaheim, Irvine, so on and so on. They're trying to find that same qualified candidate. So it makes it, even though there's a lot of competition, at least right now, it makes it a good time for someone like Jeremy who's looking for a department to go to. And I've seen over the decades where that it shifts, where there are, it's just the opposite situation. So right now, departments are scrambling, so we work to maintain standards. We were lucky to come across Jeremy, but I can tell you when I met Jeremy, he was already in process with other agencies. He's looking for a job in law enforcement, so that's not uncommon.
Officer Maddox, how long have you been now with Buena Park Police Department?
A little over a month and a half. I was hired, June 2nd, I believe? So a little over a month and a half.
And how's it going so far?
I love it. It's a dream come true.
That's a good thing. What is your experience? Did you just get out of the academy, or what kind of experience did you bring with you to the department?
Well, I started off as an explorer with Fountain Valley, went and became a cadet with them, and then enlisted in the Army as a reserve military police officer. Did that in my 5th year of being that, and went to the police academy, and when I graduated, I was offered a job here.
Pretty smooth as far as the opportunity goes. What is it like being a police officer out there now? I know because of just your different experience, you've had aspects of it, but now being out there as a police officer, wearing the Buena Park Police Department patches, what does it feel like to somebody who's never been a police officer?
It's a surreal experience. I mean, you're contacting people that have different life experiences and different issues and problems that they're facing with their lives. So to come into that and try to help them through the problem or help them through the situation it's a learning experience every day. So it's been fun. It's been interesting so far.
You're young. You have a wife, a family. What is the impact of being a police officer on the family?
I think it's tough. I mean, my wife worries. She's kind of had to shoulder the burden on the days that I'm working, taking care of our 2 daughters. So working graveyards is a little bit of a challenge, but the schedule of working 312s has afforded me more days to be with them too. So there's benefits and disadvantages to it.
So you know already that she's worried about you, but you've got to go out and do your job. What kind of things can you do to make sure that she feels maybe a little bit more comforted when she knows you're going to work?
Well, I mean, we spend a lot of time together. We go to the range together. We go and we're looking at taking martial art classes and stuff. So she knows that I'll have the tools necessary to take care of whatever I encounter. So there's that, and then we spend a lot of time together. So she knows that she's always in my thoughts, my prayers.
There's a lot that an officer needs to know now to be out on the street and be safe.
Yeah, that's true. Part of the FTO process, the training that Jeremy is going through now, much of it revolves around learning how to use the technology that we employ. I can remember, back when I started.
In the days. Were you still using a pen and paper at that time?
We were. I think you're making a joke, but that's exactly where I was going with this. Today, the computer in the car is just the first of it. There are other cameras and GPS and different weapon systems. I can go on. Just the equipment that the officers wear on their person, and even still, technology is constantly advancing, and there are always new ideas out there. So futures in terms of law enforcement is a big topic, and our leadership is interested in staying as cutting edge as possible. Of course, the flip side to that is managing, the budget to go along with it, and so on. So again, my comments earlier about, in many ways it's similar to almost any other industry who also deals with advancements in technology, stretching the budget, finding qualified people to hire. We understand that, as a police department, we understand that when we're in the community interacting with the public that we serve. So, there's a lot to learn, and one of the things that impressed me, I was on Jeremy's interview panel, by the way. One of the things that impressed me was, for a young person, he had some experience, he had some life experience. He is in the military, he's been deployed. He has, responsibility as a military police officer. So he certainly has a lot to learn here in his new role. And I understand he's off to a good start. So, I think that it's our role, as we spoke about earlier when we were talking with Sergeant Gallos, to ensure that, he gets every opportunity afforded him to learn what he needs to learn to advance and progress through his training, and to make sure that he just doesn't fail. We're confident he'll turn out to be a fine officer, or we wouldn't have extended the opportunity in the first place.
And we've already trained him on being interviewed on camera too, which is a plus, right?
Yeah. Well, when you get the old sergeant with the gray and the mustache, telling him it's time for an interview, he doesn't have an option to decline.
But really, we don't hurt you, and it's interesting to see changes in the department. Not necessarily meaning that they're positive, but as everything does, it evolves, and you see people taking positions that weren't in those positions before, and they're doing great.
Yeah, I can tell you one of the interesting aspects of this industry is the diversity and opportunity for you. If if you like the opportunity to go out every couple of 2 or 3 years and try something different, police work is a great industry for that. Jeremy will find as he progresses through his career, he can go from being a patrol officer now to a detective, when he's more experienced, to getting involved in other, collateral duties, whether it's, bicycle team or SWAT team and so on. So, that's one of the aspects of this business that I enjoy. And I find that for those people who are looking to develop diverse expertise, will also go on to continue to advance, and those are the folks that that we really look for and pick out when it comes time for special assignment selection, and even promotion.
And they serve the community well too, because of that diverse knowledge that they bring in.
We hope so. And again, making that correlation to any other industry, the broader your experience, and the more expertise that you have, it just makes you that much better.
If you have any questions about tonight's show, you can call the Buena Park Police Department at 562-3901. With Sergeant Chris Nunez of the Buena Park Police Department, I'm Jane Cameron. Thanks for watching.